There's a particular scene used in many, many movies, and the theme of the scene is the crossroads. And generally speaking, when used in a movie, the crossroads has something to do with a person making a deal with the devil. So is that biblical? Does the Bible have anything to say about the crossroads? And actually, yes. My favorite verse regarding the crossroads, it's actually one of my favorite verses in the Bible, and it's Jeremiah 6:16. And it says, "Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls." And so I was pondering that verse for a solid week while I was just in the Dominican Republic for a missions trip. It's too humid there to crack open your Bible full of writing, so I left it alone, and I pondered this verse for a whole week. And I thought to myself, what do the crossroads represent? Speaking of a spiritual crossroad, you come to a crossroads in real life, and that's easy. Everybody knows what that is. It's a fork in the road, or it's say you're lost, or say you're not exactly sure which way to go, and you come to a crossroads. It's like, I got to make a decision here. And this decision is going to have everything to do with where I go from now forward. It's going to make all the difference in the world which way I choose here. It's going to direct my path. Heavy consequences. Can't go back is kind of the idea. It's like in the movie, if you sell your soul to the devil, you're not supposed to be able to undo that. So what is the spiritual crossroads? Well, I think we come to them all the time, actually. I don't think that there's just one in our lives. There's big ones that have larger consequences than the other ones, but every single day we come to the crossroads. When we're faced with a truth that we don't necessarily want to accept, that's a crossroads. And just like in the movies, the crossroads requires a sacrifice. What Jeremiah 6:16 is saying is that it doesn't say ask where a good way is, it asks where the good way is. It says ask for the ancient paths. And so what that says is something that we all kind of know. It's that there's only one good way, and there's a lot of characteristics of that way. It's a pattern, but it's the same good way. It's the same good way in America, 2025, as it was in ancient Israel, 300 or 3,500 BC. It's the same good way with the Sumerians. It's the same good way in year 1500 Antarctica. Throughout all of existence, there is one good way. And that good way is the path of love. It's interesting, in the book of Acts, Luke is actually writing, but Paul is speaking. He says, "However, I admit that I worship the God of our fathers as a follower of the way." And in my version, the NIV, it capitalizes the W in way. There's actually multiple verses in Acts where it speaks of the way, followers of the way, persecuting those of the way. And this way is spoken of all throughout the Bible. I'll just go ahead and kind of rattle off a few verses that I like. You will make known to me the path of life. So path or way of life. Lead me in the everlasting way. The way of peace they do not know. I will give heed to the blameless way. I have directed you in the way of wisdom. These are all Psalms, by the way. And then, Isaiah's writing, another one of my favorite verses in the Bible. It's the people of Israel have really had enough of Isaiah and all of his truth speaking. They've heard enough, and they say, tell us pleasant things, prophesy illusions, leave this way, get off this path, and stop confronting us with the Holy One of Israel. You know you're speaking the truth when 90% of the room gets uncomfortable and people start packing their bags and getting out of there before they hear the next word. It's like Stephen in Acts chapter 7, I think, where suddenly he's standing there speaking the truth, the Pharisees within earshot, and suddenly the people stick their fingers in their ears, start screaming and running towards him to stone him. Thankfully, I haven't had that kind of experience, but I've had similar things where I'm speaking of in the library, my issues with particularly the field of psychology, treating the symptoms, and basically just kind of outright saying that, it's not our job to help somebody figure out the why of their life. It's like, well then what are we doing? And I remember one time in particular, I was speaking about having really kind of found out the hard way that a lot of the people that hold those PhD degrees and a lot of those people who have their psychologist license never asked these questions because they really didn't care about their clients as much as their own success. And upon saying that, I remember a student packing her bags very quickly, kind of red in the face, and it was like very clear she had to get out of there before she heard any more. And that's because once you hear a truth, you're at the crossroads. Maybe I shouldn't be forcing people to the crossroads, but also, maybe we should take these crossroads more seriously. Because what is it we're afraid to hear that we can't sweep under the rug? What decisions are we afraid of that we don't think we'll have to someday make? If not today, someday. Maybe we're not ready to pick a side. I don't think we're ever ready. I don't think we ever think so. Most people just pick a side once they have no choice, but the thing is, if you wait that long, everybody wants to stay neutral. Everybody wants to pretend like nothing's happening until knock, knock, knock on the door, and it's the SS. Armed men with your new Nazi uniform in their hands. Time to make a decision. And if you've refused to pick a side up until this moment out of fear, what decision do you think you're going to make? You're going to make the one out of fear. You're going to put the uniform on. This way, the good way, is the opposite of fear. Knock, knock, knock. There's the SS standing at your door. The good way is to say, I'm not going to put that on. and they say, we'll kill you and your family. The good way says, okay, I trust my God. Let's go home. The good way is the hardest thing to do. And we all have to make a decision eventually. We don't get out of it forever. None of us make it out of this life alive. We have to make a decision. The good way, the path of love, is perfectly represented by Jesus on the cross. The way is, I lay down my life for another, for something higher than myself. And that thing higher than myself is love. From me unto you. I sacrifice. I lose so that you can gain. Whoever that is. The point is, you fall in the name of love. It's not like when a man jumps on a grenade to save those men around him. It's not like he had a chance to stop and approve of every one of those men first. It's like, oh wait, hold up. Let me make sure every one of these is a Republican or a Democrat, or let me make sure that everybody's okay with LGBTQ before I jump on this grenade. No, he just jumps. Doesn't even know who he's dying for, likely. Jesus took that to the farthest extreme. He died for the people who put him up there. He took a bullet from the Nazis for the Nazis and the Jews and everybody before and after. That's the way. It's always been the way. It's the everlasting way. It's the message that cuts all the way to the core of a person's soul, no matter what time era you're from, no matter what geographical location you live in. A man who dies for another man moves every soul. That's who we look up to. We'll follow that guy anywhere. The guy who can really die for others, we'll follow him anywhere. You know, this message, in every generation, there's somebody that articulates it. One in recent memory that I think of here in America is Martin Luther King. He had a dream of unity and equality for all people. And he loved all people. His message was love. Even love towards a country that predominantly hated him for the color of his skin, for something so ridiculous. He chose to love them. This path, this way of love, doesn't make excuses. It doesn't say love except for. It doesn't say, yeah, love, but. It's love, period. No excuse for hate. No room for it whatsoever. If Martin Luther King could love people who hated him for his skin color, what excuse do you have to hate that you think is better than that? You know, your definition of love, does it include hate? Does it squeeze it in there in the corner somewhere? Because if you allowed hate into your own heart, right this very moment, you're wrong in everything you stand for. Right now. Right now, you're wrong. You don't get it. You're not on the path. You're not following the way. You're on your own program. Or somebody else's. You don't know. So, come to the crossroads. Come back. Reevaluate. And this time, ask what the ancient path is. With your heart ready to lose whatever you think is right now. Ready to lose everything. Ready to die. Ask where the good way is. With the intention on whatever it takes. I'm going to walk in that. Instead of saying, I want to redefine love and say, I want to be like Martin Luther King. Say, I want to be like Jesus Christ. I want to follow the way. The ancient way. The real way. And not some way that perhaps my modern day culture has convinced me is right. Just like in America during slavery, the way of culture was blacks are slaves, they're less than human. That was the right way to that culture at that time. They were wrong. They weren't in the ancient way. It's always like that. Same with Nazi Germany. The right way in 1940 Germany was the Jews are evil. They're less than human. We should kill them. That was the right way. But it was wrong. It wasn't the ancient way. Culture always has its own way. Ask what the good way is. And walk in that. There's something that I forgot to mention regarding the crossroads in that last video. And it is a scene in Ezekiel where the king of Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar, approaches the crossroads. And it's a fork in the road. And if he goes this way, he will destroy the ancient kingdom of Ammon. And if he goes this way, he'll destroy the ancient kingdom of Israel. And so he does something very interesting. It's Ezekiel chapter 21 where he does this, where he does 3 different rituals to consult false gods, which we know to be demons. And it's interesting that these 3 rituals are still very deeply embedded into the occult and witchcraft today. But he does these 3 different rituals to consult these false gods. And he pulls the lot for Israel. Here's something interesting, though. The central theme in all the books of the major prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, you cannot miss this, is that it's God's will for Israel to be judged. And that comes in the form of major destruction. And God's telling them that because of the evil that you have been committed for a couple centuries now, sacrificing your children into the fire, worshiping these false gods, worshiping evil. Basically, he's saying, I'm going to let you have your way. I'm going to let you have evil have you. So you can see exactly what it is you're worshiping. And so it happens. And so we see King Nebuchadnezzar worshiping the same evil that Israel is worshiping, and consulting these demons. And I noticed something very interesting, though. So when King Nebuchadnezzar came to the crossroads, he had his heart bent on evil. The reason he was there was because he fancied himself God. And he was like, oh, I'm just going to frivolously choose which civilization that I wipe off the face of the earth and enslave. Basically saying, I'm God, this is just a Tuesday to me. So he had his heart bent on evil when he came to the crossroads. He wasn't interested in what the good way was. He was interested in King Nebuchadnezzar's way. I'll say what the good way is. And so when he came to those crossroads with his heart bent on evil, he had his way, but he also had God's way. Little did he know. He thought he was consulting basically the gods of evil that were on his side, and he fancied that he controlled those gods. That's what they believed back then. All the while, though, he was doing the God of the universe's will, whose way was in direct conflict with his own. He just had no idea. And that's how it always is. No matter what we do, no matter what happens on this planet, it's written. It's within God's will. The outcome, no matter what we do, no matter how far we stray, Jonah, no matter what we do, the outcome will be God's way, which is 1 Ephesians 9 through 10. The mystery of God's will is and always has been the unification of all things in heaven and earth. So whether you pick the good way or not, the good way will be had. You just get to choose whether you're going to be with it or not, whether you're going to be a part of that or not. You don't get to decide whether it is or not. You don't get to choose whether or not the ark is made or if the ark floats. You just get to decide whether you'll be on it or not. That's the decision at the crossroads. Join life or don't.